All right, students, let's talk a little bit about narrators. I think this is an often overlooked part of teaching stories or creative writing, but an author usually carefully chooses, a good author usually carefully chooses who and what type of narrator they're going to use. And that can help really tell a story in different ways. So let's go through these concepts. The first person is a first person or participant narrator is a narrator who is in a story, usually the major or a minor character in the story. In other words, it is one of the characters in the story that's telling the story. And so you're going to see I, me, my. You're going to see them talking about themselves as part of the story. And that has a lot of your typical young stories are written that way. Even some of the great stories. I know The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn is written from Huckleberry Finn's perspective, and he's telling the story. And so that has its place, certainly. The more common type is the different kinds of third-person narrators, okay? So we have a third-person objective narrator. This is a narrator. All third-person narrators are not characters in the story, so they're outside observers. But the objective narrator is a narrator that only describes and does not enter the character's thoughts, okay? And that's different, much different than the next one, which is the third-person omniscient narrator. A narrator who is not a character in the story, but can see into the minds of many different characters. This is often called the godlike narrator. That's what omniscient means, all-knowing. And so this character, or this narrator, can see and know and can give great details about what's going on in the thoughts of the readers. A third-person limited omniscient narrator is a character who is a narrator who is not a character in the story and only sees into one major or minor character in the story. So they're limited. They can see into the minds and thoughts of a character, but usually only one or two. And so they're not able to see everything. That's why it's called limited omniscient. This is one that I've grown to appreciate over time. This is called the unreliable narrator. Sometimes you're reading along and you suddenly discover, hey, this narrator doesn't know or is purposely misleading the reader. And that's kind of fun. That's usually a higher level skill. And when you discover that you have an unreliable narrator, it creates a little more depth to the story, and you have to start to figure things out a little bit more on your own by what's really happening in the story. Kind of fun. A naive narrator is one that would be like a child telling a story. So this would be, for sure, this would be To Kill a Mockingbird. So the young scout is telling the story, and she gets so many things wrong. She's so innocent. She doesn't understand why some of these things are happening, and that adds to the story immensely. And so a naive narrator is a very important kind of narrator, one that we often love to read because we can see that the character, and this is kind of a form of unreliable. They're not doing it on purpose. They just don't know the real happenings of the world. Those are the types of narrators that you need to know. There's others, but those are your basic ones.